Alright, if you clicked on this video, it means you want to get better at playing the fighter class or just want some tips to help you destroy brain-dead killers in Bye Bye Night. Now, fighter is a class that relies heavily on deceiving the killer by predicting when he'll try to attack you and using the parry ability right before it happens. This stuns the killer and allows you and your teammates a couple seconds to run and recover. Now, listen, on paper, this sounds like a really useful and simple ability, but whenever your goal is to try to trick someone into doing something, it can get really complicated. For example, what if you go up against a killer that isn't completely brain dead and decides to not attack anyone if you're near them, and just wait until you panic parry? Then the ability becomes useless as he gets a free hit on you and you're forced to wait 30 seconds while the killer just chases you down and most likely ends you. Now, what can you do in order to not get in that situation in the first place? There are many methods that I'm going to teach you today so you never get baited by a killer again. To start off, obviously these methods won't work 100% of the time as each situation is very different from the other, so you have to rely on your intuition in order for you to parry successfully. Now the first method is to move in groups. Now, I know this sounds counterintuitive because most fighters' first instinct is just to hide from the killer and use their abilities only for themselves in like a risky situation. But staying in groups, especially when your team is caught off guard by the killer, can lead to the most successful parrying method in the game. To understand why that is, whenever you try to trick or manipulate someone into doing something, you first have to understand what they are thinking in their mind. So imagine this. The killer has been searching for a minute and starts to get stressed that he's not doing a good enough job, and he'll just lose the round. Then 4 survivors appear in front of his face. This makes his brain immediately understand that an opportunity like this won't happen again. So from this situation, the killer concludes that his first priority is to hope that no survivor has noticed him so far and to gain a free hit on each. Now this is where we come in. As we are doing the generator with our team and looking out for the killer, he appears and we wait for him to get close enough to attack and then parry as soon as he falls for the bait. This method almost always works as the killer's brain doesn't have enough time to process that the fighter could easily parry his attack. However, like most of these methods, they won't work more than 2 to 3 times, as eventually, after enough of the same repetition, his brain will learn to adapt instead of panicking. Now the second method is a bit more simple, but will really pay off in the long run, as this method is more useful in a normal situation. What I see a lot of people doing whenever they play as fighter is waiting on purpose for the killer to chase them, and then parrying as soon as they get close. Now this might work once on the killer, but once he realizes what you're doing, you're cooked. Now, what you should be doing is tricking the killer into believing you're the one being hunted, and then once you reach around like 5 to 10 stam, like an amount that would be normal, like during a chase, pretend like you ran on a sprint while walking away from the killer forward, and once he gets in range, parry his attack as he believes that all the work he did was convincing enough to get a free stab in. Now I know this one isn't guaranteed, and maybe even the parries most people do might work over this one, but I believe this second method will convince way more killers and increase your chances of getting parries. Also, keep in mind, all these methods are about manipulating the killer into thinking he has a free shot on you. So if you are doing something to ensure that he has that belief, then you are using the class correctly. Now the third method is the most tricky one to pull off and will only work a select amount of times. When you are barricading the door against the killer, the first thought he will have is that if he manages to break down the door, he can get a free hit on you, as usually the animation doesn't give you enough time to parry it. But sometimes the animation either bugs or throws you farther, which I'm not sure which one it is, but that allows you to immediately parry the killer as he believes he has now gotten a free hit. Now this method is extremely risky because you don't know when it'll work, when it won't, but it is good to keep in mind in case you're in like a serious dire situation and really need a free parry so you get an attack. Alright, so that was it for this psychology video on the fighter. If you want to see more videos like this on different classes, please consider subscribing. And also join the Discord in the description of the video so you know exactly when I post and you can be a part of the community. Alright, let me know if you learned anything from this video in the comments, and I'll see you guys next time.